What's going on, everyone? My name is Nicholas Merton here at DataDash, and today is April 2nd of 2019. Well, folks, I hope y'all are having a great day wherever you are and a great start to the month of May. We've got lots of exciting things to discuss today, not only in crypto markets where things are always happening and always need review, but also in regards to traditional markets where we had the Federal Reserve had their FOMC meeting yesterday and decided to not change monetary policy in any drastic way. So we're going to talk about what that means for the broader sense of markets as we go throughout the update. So let's go ahead and dive into it. So taking a look across the board here over the last 24 hours, cryptocurrency markets are mostly in the green. This is following Bitcoin, again, steadily climbing back up, taking back some of the losses and turning it into gains in this case that we had seen back during the Bitfinex news. And I think this is when markets are starting to realize that we overreacted to the news. Not to mention as well that this really isn't negative news for Bitcoin or for altcoins. In fact, it would, if anything, be negative news for Bitfinex and Tether, right? I think it was just a little bit of emotional selling right away off the news. One thing I want to share with you guys real quick, I'm not trying to shill it or anything, but I did a speech at Tokenomics a while back. They finally got it up back about a few days ago. So if you guys want to watch it, it's my kind of passionate speech on what's going on with Dash in Venezuela. It's really cool stuff, but just thought I'd toss it out there for you guys. Sorry to bug you about it, but I'll leave the link down below in the description. Now, going on in regards to market analysis, the reason I want to emphasize, guys, there's a lot of people who have different perspectives in trading. And it tends to be that in crypto, people are always very keen to focus on the short term because this is a volatile market. There are some ways to profit in the short term, but I'm going to be fair with you all. I always focus on very simple things. I take the principles of naked trading. Now, don't worry, you can see I'm not naked, but naked trading is when you basically use support and resistance. And if anything, if you're going to use any indicators, very minimal indicators, right? And maybe if you don't want to consider that naked trading under technical terms, I use a combination of very key indicators that I've used for a variety of markets that work well in combination with naked trading, because that's how Forex markets are traded. Most people just simply use support and resistance. They don't use anything else. And in crypto, that holds a lot of relevancy, right? So my emphasis here, as we've talked about, is to look to see if both cryptocurrency markets as a whole and Bitcoin hold on key levels of support. Well, even with the Bitfinex news, where we had a pretty stagnant drop in crypto markets, a little less than $10 billion in value wiped off the map, we still held at the consistent range at around 168 billion. And we've done that multiple times. And now we're starting to pick right back up, just like we did in the two previous uptrends. So, did I need any crazy indicators for that? No, I did not. I just simply had to keep an eye and set my alerts if it were to drop, say, below 166 billion or 165 billion. That's when I can start to adjust my trades and, call that, okay, we're going to probably close down on a lot of these gains that we had back here from April. Very simple, very kind of low key in a sense. You don't have to do too much to keep on top of that, right? And I want to go ahead and take a look at Bitcoin to emphasize that, because the other day I remember when we were covering the Bitfinex news, a lot of people were confident that this was breaking through. And I more than anything, you want to talk about people being confident. There's a lot of people on TradingView who post their charts and they're so set on telling you exactly what's going to happen and they just know it. Guys, a lot of those people were wrong. In fact, it's actually been able to set higher lows along the line of support quite clearly. If you just simply had your uptrend line drawn, we've had this drawn here for some time, not changing it whatsoever. It's been sitting here nicely and has been able to hold price every single time. And now we're up a good $200+. And it looks like we're going to continue to go over some time. And the reason I can say that is because not only we're holding a nice steady uptrend here over the last few days on the hourly, but we're also setting up higher highs every time. So we've been really emphasizing, again, I'm not trying to call these little short-term moves in price, guys. I have no, I don't have an 8-ball. I can't tell you where Bitcoin's going to go over the next hour or the next 24 hours. But I can tell you that Bitcoin's given us a very predictable pattern ever since this breakout has come into play here in April. And it's given me the confidence, and I'll take it off the auto adjustment here so we can take a look at some higher price range. It's given me the confidence that we're likely going to continue to see a zigzagging pattern between this resistance and the support until we reach around the $5,800 to $6,000 range. Now, why do I have that $200 range in mind? Why am I not just focusing on the big even at 6,000, where I think the real resistance is? If we take a look back at Bitcoin's price all the way over here, it's really around 6,000 in this case, a big even level. It's where Bitcoin held a lot of times in the past. Actually, just to provide some scale of how much it held. I'll take it off the hourly. That's why it was like taking me forever to scroll. You can see how significant that's going to play a role in, right? So why is it that I would keep that range there between 50 and 100? Well, because some people, as I've talked about, usually the smart traders or the smart money, trade a little bit beforehand on people. They take profits before others. And that's when I always tell people, for example, when you set your limit order to sell, in this case, let's say, for example, you bought in at 50 and you want to double your money and you think it's going to go up to 100. It may very well go near that $100 price target, but a lot of people are going to sell around 95, 98, take a little bit less profit than they probably intended because they want to lock in profits. It's not profit until you turn it from paper to an official trade, right? When you take that trade that's on the books and turn it into an official one. So around the $5,800, $5,900 range, I'm probably going to take my profits for the short term, right? At least for the funds that I'm actively trading or, I'm willing to go in and out of outside of my long-term holdings. But I think that's what I'm probably do around 58, 5,900. And then we're probably going to have a chance of testing up to 6,000 and probably face one or two rejections and then break through this green line. And then after that, I think what's very likely, sorry, my trading view is taking a second to adjust there. What I would think is very likely is that you're going to have a breakdown, and I'll actually kind of indicate it here. Again, very rough drawing, guys. This isn't exactly where I think price is going to be on a specific day, but what I think you're going to do is have a pretty stark sell-off, closing down on most of these gains, and we're going to land right on previous resistance and have multiple retests of support, and possibly get a triple bottom right in line with our support line. That would be great. That'd be awesome to see, because what we'd really be doing in this sense is setting up a triple bottom here. We'd be setting a triple bottom on previous resistance, making it support and getting that in line right there, as well as making this a lower high and the grand downtrend in this case, right? And overall, be setting up for potential rally up here to break through what would become an ascending triangle, a massive, kind of conglomeration of different TA patterns. But I think that's what you want to see here. I think that would bring a lot of confidence to crypto markets, right? So again, we're not trying to analyze what's going to happen over the next 24 hours. We're focusing on the longer term picture, the swing trade potential. We want to know when the cycle is going to start, because when the cycle starts, you don't have to do too much TA, guys. That's the best thing to do, is focus on those 4-year crypto cycles. If you want to become a day trader, guys, it's going to take a lot of work. You're going to have to compete against algorithms. You're going to have to compete against whales who can literally, in a matter of moments, off of sometimes silly news, push markets dramatically. 10+%, right? That's what happened with the Bitfinex. Do you really want to try and time that kind of stuff? I don't personally. It's not my kind of gig. So, there's a plentiful amount of YouTubers out there. We've done videos and resources to help you guys do that if you want, but it's not my kind of game. I like to keep it quite simple personally. So that's it for in regards to TA I'm going to do today, guys. I think we're going to continue this uptrend quite well. And from there, I think the momentum is actually a little bit faster than the two previous times, which were a little bit more steady. I think we're going to be moving up probably towards 5,750 to 5,800 on this uptrend. We'll have to see how quick the uptrend moves. But again, you've got that line of resistance that's going to, really give us our target range in this case from what we can move to, right? So somewhere up here around 57, probably 5,750 is more likely in early May. Alrighty, so we're going to take a look back at TA. We're going to go through stocks later on, but wanted to talk about a few pieces of news here. Square, surprisingly, has recorded that its Q1 revenue for Bitcoin is $65.5 million. This, to me, is really shocking. Now, I really am curious in this case. Apologies, my nose is a little bit stuffed up, but I'm really curious about this $65.5 million revenue figure in Q1 for Square. First off, either way, if it's the pure amount of payments that it's processed through its network, that would still be cool. I'd be like, that's pretty good for Bitcoin, because Bitcoin has, from my knowledge, little to no merchant adoption in the West where Square would be used. And it's good to see if this is the case. At least we have, a few $1 million being processed in the past 3 months, which mean about 20-something million per month. Now, what this sounds like to me is the fees that they're charging on the Bitcoin transactions. And if that's the case, depending on what Square charges, you could be talking about, like, let's say, for example, this might be 2 or 3% on Bitcoin transactions, or maybe even 4 or 5%. Either way, that means we're seeing hundreds of millions of dollars at a minimum in Bitcoin transactions over the last quarter. That's really exciting stuff. I mean, that's actually really positive. And in fact, they said it's the highest they've ever had before. So again, you can dive through the article here. Oh, sorry. So this is actually for all of 2018. In this case, they had reported 166 million in Bitcoin sales. So I'm assuming this is probably core revenue in this case, or core sales in this case that they've actually processed in Bitcoin. And honestly, for something that people are going to treat as a store of value for some time, I'm someone who'd like to see Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies be used as money and actually be used in commerce. In the West, guys, to actually see this is pretty impressive, right? So anyways, just wanted to emphasize that here. Now, the profit margins that they're riding in is not that much. It's only a few $100,000. But honestly, Square doesn't really care about that. Tech companies don't really care about profit. They just want to keep expanding revenue. They want to get market dominance in this case, or market share compared to traditional payment processors. And look, not the biggest fan of Jack Dorsey, not the biggest fan of Twitter and all these tech companies, but I'd tell you this, I'd much rather them start to step in because A, they're at least accepting crypto, and B, in this case, I have no doubt that over time, as they're going to try to have to get competitive around this market, it'll be good to have more competition because they're going to charge lower fees in this case and probably offer some benefit to crypto customers. I would really like to see that. Alrighty, so going on into the ever more ridiculous Bitfinex case that's been brewing over the last few weeks. Bitfinex shareholder Zhao Dong, who we mentioned back a while ago, has provided more details about the potential $1 billion token sale of Bitfinex. Well, hello, my friends. It is I am Lesneski. I actually work for Bitfinex board. I would like to let you know about $1 billion IEO. You're going to wonder whether or not I messed that up on purpose or not. The fact of the matter is, guys, they're not going to raise an exchange that has just got caught for losing $800 million is not going to raise $1 billion. But I don't think that's their goal. I think their goal is to raise as much as they can and hopefully recoup some of these losses in this case. Now, ironically enough, to answering the question for a lot of people, would I partake in something like this? No, I wouldn't. First off, because I'm a U.S. client, I can't do that. But second off, Bitfinex has done this kind of stuff before. All right, Bitfinex had a big exchange hack a long time ago, and they actually used a token model. It sounds quite interesting on paper, but you'll get different interpretations as to how they handle it. That all being realized, I don't want to dive down that rabbit hole and try to defame Bitfinex in this case. The fact of the matter is, they've had exchange hacks before. They've had huge problems that they've had to face, and they've done these kind of tokenized models before. Now, what they originally did, from my understanding, was that they actually did a system where you could actually, over the future, you get these Bitfinex tokens, which would be redeemable for $1 or $1 Bitfinex share instantly in that case, from my understanding. And I think they did that through Bank for the Future in this case. That was, I think, how they handled it. But either way, lo and behold, guys, this kind of activity, this kind of, forgive us this time, we'll do it different next time kind of behavior is, it's not going to last forever. Right? Eventually people start to wisen up, and I honestly would not trust Bitfinex personally. It's just my opinion. You guys can go out and determine what you want, but I think stuff like this is ridiculous. I think it's a cash grab. So again, they've done stuff like this before. There's a good video you can watch called Bitfinex, the Hack Recovery Bank to the Future case study on YouTube. Kind of explains the whole scenario and how they went about dealing with the debacle of the exchange hack. So going on to some more positive news in regards to crypto, one thing that I really liked was this continued work that I've been hearing about through Charles Hoskinson and IOHK inside Ethiopia in pairing with Cardano. So IOHK has been training about, I think it's around 12 to 14 students in Ethiopia. A lot of them are actually, from my understanding, actually women and stuff who are trying to basically kind of build a foundation of blockchain in regards to Ethiopia. They're very in ties with the government because the government of Ethiopia, most African nations in this case, are very eager to get into new emerging technologies, things that remove trust or middlemen that aren't needed. I mean, it's a perfect test case in this case, right? And not to mention, one thing that I heard from my friend Christo, who does a podcast, Christo on Crypto, he was sitting down with Charles Hoskinson, and the thing that Charles brought up is like, what I really hate is that there's all these developer types who expect, I need the $100,000 or $200,000 salary, and I need the benefits, and I need this of the token supply, and I need this week's off. Whereas these people in Ethiopia, they're ready to kill it. They're ready to work at it and learn about these new technologies. And they don't need some exorbitant salary. They just want to build this because they know it's important to the place that they live. And they know that it's a really interesting piece of technology that can help improve a lot of lives. And that's a really cool kind of shift in personality, I would say, honestly, from the West, or really not just to overgeneralize it like that, because there's some developed parts in the Eastern world, from the developed world to the underdeveloped world. I really admire Cardano's focus on that, to give opportunity to people who never would have had it before in this case. And they're actually working on something called Atla, which is basically going to be a government a government-focused blockchain in this case. I don't know if it's going to be centrally controlled. They don't provide much details in this, but basically it's going to interact and be interoperable with the Cardano blockchain, bringing a lot of users. In fact, they're aiming for 15 million to be comfortable with using ADA. Again, I think that's the overall end goal number in that case, so I don't think it would happen instantly. But they see this as an interoperable framework between Cardano's blockchain in this case. And they're basically going to try to connect farmers and all kinds of businesses in the area and provide supply chain logistics in regards to its new blockchain Atla. Or Atala, I might be pronouncing that wrong. But again, very exciting stuff. Some good fundamental developments going on in the crypto space. One last thing in regards to crypto news, guys. I have a good guy named Chris who actually hosted one of our events for Project Genesis when I was over in the Netherlands. And he was wanting me to share with you guys, if you guys have Effect AI tokens and stuff, to potentially swap them. And if you guys haven't heard about Effect AI, it's a pretty cool, interesting concept for an AI marketplace. Not a sponsor of the channel or anything, but Chris was a really nice guy who hosted the event for us in the Netherlands. And they got a really cool team of developers who I really got an impression that they're just very practical and they're doing something really cool. So good kind of idea of building a marketplace for algorithms and things of that sort. Alrighty, guys. So let's go ahead and talk about this news with Powell. Now, when we take a look at what the Fed did yesterday, we're going to see two very different reactions in different markets. So the Federal Reserve decided, outside of a few lesser known rates, I think it was the IEOR rate. I always mix up these little acronyms, but outside of a few other rates, the Fed funds rate was pretty much unchanged, right? So interest rates weren't risen, they weren't cut, and the balance sheet hasn't seen any change, okay? So what do I take from this? Well, what I take from Powell's decision is that he's trying to get the best of both worlds. He's trying to have a strong dollar and a strong equities market. We have seen equities rally up over the last few months, ever since back in December at the end, where basically we set the bottom and rallied up to all-time highs yesterday in the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ. Well, let's go ahead and take a look at both of those markets. What happened post-decision? If we take a look at the dollar index, the dollar actually had a really big boost up. Powell played it right on the dollar. He is calling for a stronger dollar. He didn't cut rates. A lot of people like myself were actually expecting him to cut rates in this case, because I honestly thought that he would put his balance of influence on equities. And the reason I say that is because if we take a look at the daily here, dollar's done quite nice. It has some room for retracement. This is the Dixie index, the dollar index that basically weights against other foreign currencies. And I thought, honestly, that he would think he'd have some room for this to come back down to this support line and still even be able to hold the momentum of the dollar. But he decided to play in favor of the dollar. However, he did not play in favor of the NASDAQ in equities. Take a look at this. This has been the ascending wedge here that has been holding the NASDAQ and most indices in this case, but specifically the NASDAQ over the last few weeks, all the way back since February. His decision yesterday pushed this outside of that wedge and led a really nice green day of price action into a pretty stark sell-off towards the end. Now, I don't know what, we're not really getting a clear pre-market reading here. We could probably take a look at the Qs to get an idea of that. Still sitting at 0%. I don't know if it's really unchanged. Sometimes TradingView doesn't prop it through properly. Either way, I don't know if the market's going to open up a little bit green, a little bit red. I don't know what it is, guys, but I'll tell you all, over the next week or two, I'm just going to show you the chart real quick. I mean, you can already see it here, but I want to show you the actual index. Does this look like a time you'd want to buy into equities, right? New buyers are what carry markets forward. Do you think, after what the Fed did yesterday about not cutting rates or providing any stimulus to the market, that you'd want to buy after this? After an almost 2,000 point rally in the NASDAQ. How about the S&P 500? I'll go ahead and give you a little bit of a look at that. Look at that beautiful red candle right at the top, right as we were setting all-time highs. Now we're back below. Does that actually make you feel bullish? Do you actually think you'd want to buy this after a 600-point rise in the S&P 500? How about the Dow Jones? Let's go ahead and take a look at the DJI. Not even setting all-time highs. In fact, looks like it's setting a pretty clear triple top here. Would you want to buy that after the Fed showed no sign of wanting to ease markets? Probably not. All right. Not to mention as well, the Russell 2000, the small caps, have been holding consistent resistance and got shot down right here when it needed to have a breakthrough, right? So we talked about this stuff in my newsletter yesterday. I broadcasted it out. And the major thing I want to incentivize here for you to think about is that the Fed really needed yesterday to provide something for the bulls in equity markets. In fact, I'd actually talked about how there's a potential for the NASDAQ to go up to 10,000 points. We're only about 25% away from there. And what it would actually be, if you take a look at the logarithmic chart, and we'll go ahead and spread the auto here, it's really not that far away. It's up here. It would be a double off of what we did during the dot-com era. So I honestly thought that Powell was going to look towards that. But honestly, I don't think that's the case, guys. He really killed off the opportunity for that to happen yesterday. And quite frankly, I think it's going to weigh pretty heavily on equities. But I'd like to know what you all think down in the comments down below. What do you all think about all this news? Do you think that markets are going to continue to rally and go to all-time highs again and that this was just a short-term reaction? Or do you believe this could be the final top end for equity markets? I'd like to know down below in the comments. But we've talked enough today, guys. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Stay tuned.